Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. And what we're going to do is we are going to follow up on the latest set of videos featuring Dennis Bushnell in both 2014 and 2018 with his basically question and answer session, okay, after the 2018 Fire Conference. And the reason I want to do this, number one, is to kind of show you what he's said across the years and then what he's really about, because he's really about national security. He's really about classified materials, classified defense programs, and then introducing all of these different technologies when they're ready on a consumer level into the public arena through various forums and corporations, okay? And if you watched the last video, I want to recap a little bit, okay? First of all, in 2014, instead of discussing Malthus 101, right, which is basically population control, and then he actually says population control that will change everything. That mantra is kind of by the side, right? Instead, he's openly talking about what? Us merging with the machines, uploading our consciousness. And this would be the quote-unquote same virtual era that they don't know when will begin, that he discussed all the way back in 2001 in his Future Strategic Issues and Warfare document. Okay, so that's not gone. He's absolutely talking about that. All right, but what you have to understand, if you were watching and listening, he talked about 5 cents virtual reality all the way back in 2011. He also talked about 10,000 brain chips, right, being in human beings all the way back in 2011. In 2018, 7 years later, he's talking about that same 5 cents virtual reality technology being already, what, commercially available. Well, what do you mean commercially available? Well, obviously you can go out and you can get now an Oculus Rift that is detached from a computer that can interface in many ways with the computer, but a standalone device, no sensors, for about $300. And believe me, you go to a pawn shop, you get them for like $150. I got a couple of them, right? Everything's a tool. And that is, again, what's commercially available and not what you can spend big money on for the 5 cents reality that they want to eventually upload you to. These are steps, okay? But he also, again, if you watch this, acknowledged his role in the national security apparatus and discussed not only the robotization, but no jobs for humans and what universal basic incomes. Those are all huge things. One of the things I've been focusing on outside of Bushnell that we're going to start this conversation with, and I watched like the first 5-10 minutes of it in succession, just like the last time. And I was just so blown away by that. I was like, you know what, we're going to watch this live with the audience so we can have real-time reactions. But the first thing that is asked of him has to do with satellites and space warfare. And flat out, when he's confronted with this very, simplistic and easy question, he says no comment. And I'm going to show you why he says no comment. Because we now have, and have had for a very long time, a militarized space system. All right? The strategic initiative put out by Reagan in the 80s, the Star Wars project, did not fail, and is on an advanced level that we can not even imagine. And that is why, again, when he was talking about what? Quantum computing. He refused to say some of the things that have been told to him by the engineers. And NASA partnered with Google on quantum computing. We're going to go through all of it, especially in the very beginning. I need you to thumbs this up, subscribe, and share no matter what platform you are watching or listening on. I do know that there were a lot of audio issues in the last broadcast. We're not going to try to have those, but I did fix a lot of that. If you want to watch the vidcast that I'm referring to here, the machines are waking up, or if you just want to listen to it, It's also available here on the infowarrior.podbean.com. Again, Rockfin. That's where you're going to find all of my stuff uncensored. I'd encourage you to go over there. We want to thank Odyssey for backing up the YouTube channel. Again, there's a lot of censorship out there, but I do need you to check out all the documentary films for free, give you a basis where I'm coming from and why I'm focusing on transhumanism, especially right now, okay? Because Loose Change Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, they talk about the CNN syndrome that's in that document. They talk about live and prime time terror, okay? And what the reality behind it is. And then you want to see Invisible Empire and New World Order defined and shade the motion picture. That's the globalization aspect of it, okay? That's the coordination of it. These are the tools, the Trojan horse civilian systems that are utilized by a predator class via roundtable groups, okay? So without further ado, we're going to start it up here. And what I want people to notice, because he doesn't talk for a while in this, he's just wrapping up his speech, and he's getting a standing ovation. Now, again, a lot of these people are wealthy. They are, basically minions of a predator class. And, a lot of them are just kind of like futurists as well. This is Fire 2018. But he's speaking to a select group of people, okay? And you should see how happy he is, okay? He is ecstatic. And as soon as we get into the satellite stuff, really all of it is going to be interesting because he talks around a lot of the things he says. As we've noted, these speeches that he's given and the documents, there's a lot of overlap, right? And remember, it's 10,000 brain chips in 2011. It's 200,000 brain chips in 2018. We're now probably in the millions of what they will say human brain chipping in 2022. Okay, but here it is. Here's his big ovation, folks. Look how happy he is. That's Melderly. Oh, he's so happy. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you for the transhumanist message, Mr. Bushnell.
Thank you.
And every time he's talking about that transhumanism, go watch the video. He's stomping his finger down. He's like, the children are choosing to text somebody on the playground across the way. That's the evolution. We're taking the evolution into our own hands. You may not like it, but that's what we're becoming. We've created a second form of life in the very beginning that's quote-unquote waking up, according to Bushnell.
I asked Marcus a favor. My ears are as old as the rest of me. So, if you ask a question, when you ask a question, he's going to repeat it so I know what it is so I can answer it.
We have runners, I think, with microphones. There's one. Just raise your hand if you have a question.
Over here. Quick question. You talked about magnetic space junk and being able to attract it with these magnetic capabilities, but isn't most of it aluminum and other type of materials that are non-magnetic? And then second question I have is the Russian satellites that are moving in unknown and unusual paths. In other words, satellites are no longer just satellites, but now they are moving around in unknown and unexplained patterns. Can you comment on that and the evolution you see of satellites with that similar technology?
So again, this is 2018. This is as Starlink is coming up, and DARPA is also working on their Blackjack network. All right? And first of all, let's go back to his initial question. So again, if you watch the watch along, basically Bushnell was talking about all sorts of things via space travel. Now, one thing that people didn't really note is what space-hardened humans, genetically modified humans, so that they can take the radiation and other types of situations that they're in space. And he said they're in the process of doing that. But then he talked about all the space debris and how it was everywhere. And he talked about a tether, for instance, that would magnetically grab these things. And this guy's pointing out, well, isn't most of the material up there not really magnetic? And boy, that's going to catch him a little off. He's going to change his words. But the main thing that really needs to be discussed is what? These satellite systems, okay? Because as I've told you, Google, NASA, they're in it together on AI. All right, quantum supremacy. Bushnell talks about a lot of this work taking place in space because it's the ideal conditions. Blackjack, these satellite systems he's talking about, turning a corner in 2020, probably about 18 months after that speech. Lockheed Martin, integrating them. Okay, DARPA satellites damaged at processing facility ahead of what? SpaceX launch. SpaceX is launching these things. All right? In fact, we'll show you 2 of the Mandrake satellites that have been launched. That's what people need to understand. Okay? This is the big deal. That Starlink, and remember, he talks about Musk and SpaceX in this, and he talks about lighter materials so rockets can go further. But rocket technology is just one of the many propulsion technologies out there, and it's the one we hear about, and it's the one that's what? Utilized for the military-industrial complex, sending Mandrake 2 Blackjack satellites into the air because they're Trojan horse civilian systems. They are weapons systems, okay? And that's what they really are. So when Musk sends those into the Ukraine, it's an act of warfare. He's not your friend. He's a front man for this. He's got big military contracts to send cargo anywhere in the world, okay, in an hour's time. And look, Bushnell himself is not going to want to talk about those satellite systems. And it's always Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, space warfare is real. That's the one thing he'll acknowledge here. Let's get those thumbs up.
And Ty, say the first one a little more carefully.
The space junk, if it's in lightweight materials, not necessarily magnetic to use the Earth's magnetic field, and therefore you can't catch it because it's not magnetic.
Yeah. So first one is if you're collecting space junk, you're using a magnetic tool to collect it, and it's all of these new composites that are not magnetic. How do you do that?
Okay. Space junk, you can work nets. Okay. We don't use magnetics. You can go up and grapple it. Okay. In space warfare, you may have heard about grapplers for taking out the other guy's satellite. Okay, there's all kinds of ways to do that. The problem with the space junk, taking care of it, is one, the legalities, and the other is it's hugely expensive to do all of this lane changing and so forth, and it's only when you can go fuelless that you can just put some of them up there and let them go.
Fuelless. Space warfare. But now he gets asked about those satellite systems and how they're more than satellites, and watch what he flat out says.
And the second one is the Russians apparently have satellites up there that I'll describe. They're moving in strange ways, and there may not be normal satellites, maybe doing something different. And so what's that all about?
Oh, look at that big smile. Oh, they might be doing something different, eh, Dennis?
No comment.
Oh, come on now. No. Killer satellites? Are they? Okay, all right. Sorry, Ty. One for two.
What he didn't tell you is I'm the NASA rep to the National Intelligence Council. And so I got to be a little careful.
Yeah. Okay.
I told you. I told you that's what he's about. He's a national security guy. He's a bureaucrat that's been in there pre-Apollo, Gemini. He gets all sorts of access to things we don't get.
Next question.
She's going to go first.
Hi. So you spoke of humans as becoming cyborgs, but you also spoke of the creation of a second intelligent species. And I was curious if you could describe what that species would be like and what that would look like.
So you talked about cyborgs, but you also talked about the creation of a second intelligent species.
Yes.
What would that look like?
The second intelligent species is any robot with a good AI in its head. Okay. The experience so far is that the AI, even this initial AI, is getting really, really good. And I talked to one person here who tells me he even thinks he knows why it's so good. Everybody else I've talked to in the AI business says, I don't know why it's doing it, but it's doing it and it's working. Okay. business with the brain replicants is interesting. It's more than interesting. It's going to be a revolution because I don't know how many niche areas. What we need for that second intelligent species is AGI, artificial general intelligence, not just niche intelligence, which is about all we've got now. Okay. But the physical characteristics, you can put anything, they've got robots now that look like people, look like dogs, look like anything. That's not an issue.
So listen, again, he's talking about transhumanism like, hey, it's already here. They've got it all. We've obviously seen Spot the robot dog. I've warned you that these are going to be weaponized further because the attachments can be anywhere. We talked about the cheetah bot, even in space travel, what we're talking about, Atlas robots going out there. All of this is a what? Reality now. Okay? A reality now. And with AI and future warfare and figureheads like Elon Musk that are being propped up to be saviors in these scenarios, I want to go back to this document, okay, and just show you again. Welcome to the bots, Borgs, and humans of 2025 AD, 2.5 years from now. This is DARPA. This is the CIA. This is the Office of Naval Intelligence, okay? All of this. Just Army after next. Nothing pixie dust. And when they show you, and again, look, it takes about 15 years to produce this stuff, 40 plus years in inventory. So everything he's talking about, well, it has to be a little careful. No, he's being very careful. He's just preparing you for what's out there. Okay, and they got it down. Bio-nano era started in 2020. Injections in billions of people with bio-nanotech. And he talks about that virtual. Let's see if he talks about it in this, because he talks about virtual reality. Let's see if he gets the question. But he talks about uploading consciousness back in 2014. That is the virtual era. Make no mistake about it. It is not the one that empowers humanity. And how do you know this? Well, you look at how many times they use Psy-War in this document, and it's everywhere. Hostage, terrorism. I mean, along with the biological warfare, along with the chemical warfare, along with the nano warfare. Psy-War in the large. In the large. There's biochemical, micromechanical, in other words, nanotech. This guy is a warfare guy. That's what he does. All right? So thumbs it up, subscribe, and share.
Next question.
Well, you dropped the NAD thing this earlier, and so I want to ask you, you've obviously been taking NADs. How long, and can you recommend a brand?
So what he's talking about when he talks about NADs, and that's the openly available anti-aging technology that he says works. Doesn't just lengthen your age. And I looked into it after this. There's some commercially available, quite expensive on Amazon, but then there's also injections of it, which is the most expensive.
For people to look at.
So you mentioned NAD Plus.
Yes.
Obviously, you're taking it. How long have you been taking it, and what do you recommend for a brand?
Okay. If you Google NAD Plus, you find out that people have been working on this for 30 years. Really good people. They did the usual mouse models, and they took mice that were totally gray and decrepit, okay, walking around with canes, if mice do that. And they turned them into young mice. Okay? So there's FDA tests now on humans, so forth and so on. And the people that are into this kind of business are all taking this stuff. So there's, this is all on a web. For $35, you get 30, 40 pills. You can get them anywhere from 100 milligrams up to 250 milligrams.
I actually looked at 300 milligrams. That's probably what I'm going to be ordering.
I took them one bottle for a month. All the strength came back, all of it. It fixed a bunch of stuff. Stuff started falling off my skin. It's fantastic. There is only one other thing that I messed with, okay? I'm a health nut, okay?
Yeah, he is, and I've talked about that. All these people that don't tell you not to take big-time supplements, I got, supplements, just vitamin D, B, all that stuff. Saw palmetto, good for you. Again, I'm a 42-year-old man on the way to 43. And they always tell you all these studies, oh, they don't work and they're placebo effects. Think about it now. Dennis Bushnell's telling you this. And there are certain truths to what he's telling you, but in a limited capacity. So, yeah, I'm buying the gnats.
And the other one was the amino acids arginine and ornithine. 3-to-1 arginine to ornithine, 3 to 5 grams at bedtime on an empty stomach with some water. You wake up, your mouth is dry because everything's getting fixed. And this is a growth hormone releaser, which NAD is not. NAD fixes the ends of your mitochondria. Okay? The growth hormone releaser was wonderful. The problem is it's a growth hormone releaser, and therefore, if you have nascent cancer, it makes that grow too. Okay? So once I figured that out, I got off of that, but while taking it, it fixed a whole bunch of stuff. So, we are getting closer to fixing human physiology seriously. The CRISPR stuff is having great success and a few failures, but it's learning fast.
Okay. There's one. Do you have a microphone?
So again, he also just talks about CRISPR, gene editing, kind of blasé. And yeah, I didn't know anything about NADs until I had watched from the other day. And that's the thing, man. A lot of people, when they talk to me about this stuff, they always go, Jason, wouldn't you rather not know? No. Ignorance is not bliss. I want to know what the available technologies are. I want to know what the mouthpieces are saying. I want to know what the agenda is. I want to know what these bureaucrats are doing behind the scenes. Let's get some thumbs up and likes, guys. Can we get over 100 over there? Let's see what we got here.
You mentioned that you had issues with the abundance people and that crowd. Could you talk a little bit more about where those differences are?
Well, look how smiley he is on this. So finally, we're getting to the point where in this speech, he doesn't talk Malthus 101. He doesn't talk about population control that changes everything. But he basically says that we're short those planets. He also talked about the plummeting standard of living. And he talks about the singularity crew, and I've talked about it. People like Kurzweil, who don't believe in overpopulation. I give Musk credit. Musk has also talked about overpopulation being a myth. So let's see what Bushnell has to say. He's really liked that question. He heard that one. He doesn't need him to repeat it. All right? He's smiling away.
They're way too upbeat. Their claims are a bit extreme. And by being upbeat, I mean they don't take into account the ecosystem problems. They don't talk about the downsides of some of the technologies that they talk about. It's just this golden light thing, nirvana, okay, which is not practical yet and not realistic the way usual systems develop and function.
So again, that's the standard answer. Oh, they're way, way too bright. No, it's your fear-mongering and control. Again, NASA very much a part of the quote-unquote climate change agenda. Meanwhile, this guy is dealing with all sorts of technologies that he admits could solve all these issues. Halophyte plants. He's been talking about it for over a decade. Talked about mini nuclear in that. And those are the publicly available ones that we actually know about that are not classified.
Thank you. Another question?
Let's see where we're going here.
Thank you for a wonderful talk. It seems to me that one of the biggest challenges that we have is not technologically oriented, but educationally oriented. I see just this growing divide between the people who can understand your talk and our current K through 12 educational system.
So it's hilarious to Dennis that this guy's basically saying, well, there's a growing divide of people who get what you're saying. I'm not even sure this guy gets what he's saying at all. At all. You know, because he's not talking about the issues I'm talking about. But maybe he's not. Maybe he gets it. Maybe he's on the side of all this. I mean, Dennis Bushnell in this talked about all of these nanotags and sensors like we did last time, being able to surveil everybody on the planet without, quote-unquote, geo, 24/7, 365. Anybody and everybody. Look at him. He's laughing about the education system.
Which does not seem to be keeping pace, or maybe even not pace, but can't decide whether to teach evolution or not. I wonder if you could speak to how we might fix our educational system.
Okay, this I understood. The American education system is broke. It's dead broke. The teachers do not know how to spell motivation, okay? And we did a study where we did some software and built into the software the motivational precepts of what keeps the SEALs in during Hell Week, what works psychological motivation, what works in the workplace, what works with homeschooling. And that software, the kids just loved it. It was more fun than anything they'd ever done, okay? If we built motivation into both the online and the physical instruction, that would help.
Let me just start here. He's telling you the truth. The system is beyond broken at this point. I mean, you got people. I had somebody who I really care about, again, parroting this idea of the quote-unquote don't say gay bill, when nothing in it says anything about gay or homosexuality. Simply doesn't want to sexualize children 5 to 9. And I don't think it goes far enough. I don't want the sexualization of my teenagers, quite frankly. You know, I understand health class. I understand societal issues. But to introduce that into the classroom to people that are literally not even 10 years old, forget about prepubescent, is disturbing and disgusting. You know, you talk about all this drag queen story time. I wouldn't bring, you know, my little nephew, who's almost 3 now, to a strip club. I wouldn't do it when he's 5. I wouldn't do it when he was 8. I wouldn't do it when he was 12. I wouldn't do it when he was 16 either. You see what I'm saying here? And yet, those are the issues that are taking place in the school systems because they want it broken. And it's funny because Bushnell's talking about this and motivation and AI. They could empower us with this technology. Instead, they are trying to enslave the masses through division and ignorance. Because, look, there is a place for online learning. I'll tell you what, my niece flourishes in what they call ST math, right? She was supposed to be at like 80 or 90% right now on her ST math. I think she's like at 140%. She loves it. She actually likes it. She asks me questions about it. I like that. That's good. That's the type of education we need. But that's not the type of education you're seeing across this country. And when he talks about it being broken and the motivation of students, that's purposeful.
Okay. A major problem with what you mentioned is that in this country, Parade Magazine every once in a while prints who makes what, okay? And if you look at who makes what, these are the heroes of the education people undergo, and it's sport figures, it's entertainment figures. It's not like in Russia and Germany and China where the intellectuals have any kind of prestige at all.
By design. By design. Instead, what do? They throw up false prophets. And again, he mentions Elon Musk in this, like Elon Musk as the savior. He tweets. He's the cool guy. Okay? So false prophets for sure.
Okay? I mean, people in my business dress down on the weekends, okay, to try to fit in. This is a societal disaster in terms of fixing the kind of, you have to motivate people. And this is part of the motivation.
I'm motivating all of you to get this information out so people understand that this transhumanist agenda is very real, that NASA is about warfare, that this is very, very much the next step in a global system of governance run by a outward predator class for the regimentation of all human beings into a transhumanist movement and agenda that will rob us of our very humanity and, in my opinion, souls.
Totally agree with that. So we have, there's one right there.
You talked, is this working? Yeah, there we go. You talked about emergence, and you talked about the parts of the brain waking up, and then you made a reference to the web. I'd like to hear more about that. And then I'd like you to relate that to AI and AGI.
So you talked about emergence,
Yeah, I got that.
and then AI, how the brain wakes up, and AI and age.
Most of this is supposition. There's a literature on this that I suggest you read. Nobody knows how the brain works. The kind of details you're asking for, I'm not sure exist. When I stated that, it was as something that people had published, and that's it.
See,
Thank you.
Again, when he that's kind of a cover story. Most of it is supposition, and then he refers to literature, but he doesn't tell you what to read and where that literature is. And if you look at, let's just bring it up. And look, I've read this document. I don't know how accurate it is, but the idea that the military has never been interested in consciousness or mapping the brain or the type of answers don't exist, well, then that's the question about consciousness in general, because earlier on you were basically talking about macro evolution, not micro, and the evolution within the human being to where it became conscious. And then you did supposition that with the web and AI. But I just want to type in the gateway process, so anybody can check this out. You go read it. We might do a full video on it. We've talked about it before. But this is, even Vice covered it. How to escape the confines of time and space, according to the CIA. It basically talks about how consciousness comes from within and creates our own analysis. Here it is, CIA.gov, the gateway process. And this is an Army document from '83. So the Army conducts the experiment on behalf of the CIA. This is already publicly available. Again, you're looking at something that's almost 40 years old. And you're telling me again that there hasn't been progress. Come on now. Come on now, Dennis. That almost sounds like an easy prepositioned answer.
Oh God, they're going to give me the mic. First time in 5 years they've been stupid enough to do that. A quick question on the space side, kind of take it back off of the personal side. I saw recently that the Japanese are trying to do a little pilot on a space elevator. Do you think that's at all reasonable, given Bryn and the other books that we've read on that?
Yeah, I got it. Single point of failure systems. Okay? There's all kinds of, there's some books written on space elevators. People thought when carbon nanotubes came along that was going to do it. Well, no. It turns out that space elevators and so forth are acted on by atomic oxygen and other things. They're huge, expensive capital projects, okay? And they're single point of failure systems. And as an engineer, no. As a taxpayer or even a stockholder with their costs and so forth, no.
So basically he's saying space elevators not happening. That's interesting. And really you got to think to yourself, if they were able to do space elevators, quote unquote, those would be things that were visible from countries, right? They'd have to be, because they'd be so high up. I mean, again, with the World Trade Center, when just that small, that's like microscopic in regards to what a quote unquote space elevator would be. see them across the city in New York. Obviously other parts of the state as well. Just want to point that out.
Solve that problem.
What do you think are going to prove to be the trickiest things about colonizing Mars? I mean, you mentioned how transportation is getting cheaper. We have to worry about radiation. Are we actually going to be able to mine enough water or materials on the planet to be able to make fuel and so forth? Like, what do you think is going to turn out to be the trickiest problem to solve? And what's your sort of realistic timeline?
All right. The Mars issues are cost and safety. Safety includes reliability, because the repair stations are kind of far apart once you go to Mars. The costs are on their way down because we can make a lot of stuff there with in situ resource utilization with all the massive resources on Mars. Okay.
So far, about the only thing I think that he's telling the truth about here is the massive resources on Mars. Just want to point that out there.
And Musk, bless his soul, the renewable rockets.
Musk and the renewable rockets, bless his soul. Boy, Dennis Bushnell really likes Elon Musk. Weird.
The costs of getting to space, the irreducible cost is the 0.4% of the cost, which is the fuel. All the rest of it we can reduce. And he's gone, and so better materials to get the dry weight down, reusable, and so forth and so on, and totally robotic, okay? This is robotic design, robotic manufacture, robotic transfer, robotic ops. It's people that cost money.
And once again, he's being honest here. He told you the robots are taking the jobs. I played another interview with him where he talks about, again, sending robots on expedition missions to survey the areas, and then what? Oh, create it virtually. You'll be able to visit it virtually with that 5 cents virtual reality he talked about. And meanwhile, remember in this, he also talked about basically space tourism. But that's just a PR campaign where rich people go 60,000 feet up in the air, like Shatner and Branson and Bezos and his dick rocket. You understand? That's all PR to make you believe, oh, the moon and Mars and humans, and we're sending the first woman of color to the moon. Sure we are. With all that rocket tech that he keeps telling you isn't quite there yet, with the space-hardened humans that they were working on 4 years ago. You get it?
Okay. You want to pull cost out of anything, and that's why people are losing their jobs to the machines, okay?
You want to pull the cost out of anything. That's why people are losing the jobs to the machines. Remember, it's not quite, in 2011, he's not quite sure what humans will do all day. In this, he tells them that you won't have jobs. In other words, you won't have purpose.
The people. And by the way, in aerospace, people are responsible for 80% of the safety problems. Okay? If you want a safe system, no people. Okay? All right. Now, you ask what's the major problem? A major problem is psychological. We try to work with the submarine people and so forth and so on, but there's grave concern that you shoot people up in this little thing for quite a ways, and it's going to be, they may kill each other before, who knows, okay?
He's not wrong. That's it, but that's a very small thing compared to everything else. Yeah, no, they may kill each other. Again, yeah, you're in hyper isolation. Hyper isolation. This isn't a movie.
So there's the psychological problem. It's better initially if they go fast. These are called fast transits. I described this nuke battery. This nuke battery, one of the things it can do is to power Vasimir, which is a high-thrust MHD electric propulsion system that has 6,000 seconds of ISP instead of 453.35, which is all you get from hydrogen oxygen, which is the best chemical system. Okay?
So again, he's talking about other propulsion systems, what he's allowed to talk about.
By powering Vasimir with this new battery, we can do Mars in 200 days round trip, which is equal to the 6 months that we put people up on station so far, which is survivable. Okay. And another way to get the cost down and to make this all more reasonable is about 3 or 4 years before the humans go, you send the autonomous robotics with printing machines to get all of those massive resources on Mars. Everything is on Mars. I'm going to talk tomorrow morning about making Mars the Walmart for the entire inner solar system. Okay?
Like how he refers to Walmart.
We can do this. We can make everything on Mars that the people need, because we can get carbon out of the atmosphere, we can get hydrogen and oxygen out of the water, which means we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, which means we can make all the methane and all the fuel, which means we can make all the plastics. And we can make anything and everything out of plastics. We can even make conductors out of plastics. Okay? So we can make it all there. We don't have to haul it with them. We don't have to haul it from here. Okay? And that means that it's all there. The coffee's perking before humans leave home. And all you now have to do is the humans and their equipage, which scales with their size, unfortunately. Everything's shrinking except the humans. We've got to figure out a way to shrink the humans, okay?
You think he's joking about that? In 2011, he actually talks about, quote-unquote, lowering the bridge and genomically shrinking humans on the planet so they need less resources. He's not joking when he says that. All right? Whether you believe any of this Mars stuff, it doesn't matter. The bioengineering, okay, the geoengineering, the technology he's talking about, very real.
Get the cost really down, but that's more difficult. Okay? Realistically, Musk is saying by 26 he'll have people on or around Mars.
No.
If not before.
No.
Other people are saying similar things. NASA is going to take a while longer for several reasons, which I won't go into here. No comment.
No comment. Oh, and remember, we have a video when they're talking about Mars, how he's just cracking up. And he goes, didn't get to Mars. But he's talking about other propulsion systems. Okay? So he gets to a point where he can't even talk about the tech. I want to point that out. Let's get those thumbs up. Remember to like, share, and subscribe on every platform you're watching this on.
Okay. I think we always have people here from all over the place. Europe, I know they're here. So maybe 2 more questions, and then we'll wrap it up. So do we have, there's one. Yep.
Can't hear what she's saying at all.
With regard to rapid space propulsion, what are your thoughts on the viability and value of laser-propelled light sails?
Laser-propelled
Regarding
light
propulsion?
sails.
Laser-driven light sails?
Okay. Along with transporting the humans rapidly and safely, there's freighters, cyclers, okay, which can be slow boats. Sails come in many varieties. There's the light sails, which can be either photons off of the sun or lasers. There's particle sails, okay, magnetic rings. You can even launch stuff out there at sails, okay, per se. We call them slow boats, cyclers, and freighters, okay. And the people that are thinking about doing space commercialization, mining, and hauling stuff around, need to think about it, seriously.
I was thinking in particular about interstellar or very rapid light craft,
Interstellar?
like breakthrough starshot.
I'm very familiar with that project. That's the current front runner. It's going to take forever.
And it's interesting. He smiles. He says he's current. He knows about that project, but he says it's going to take forever. Now, is that true? Is that front? Is that a talking point? Who knows? We're wrapping it up. There's a few minutes left in this Q&A. I do want to tell everybody, make sure you're supporting me if you can. At least make the free account over at rokfin.com. And if you can, $9.99 a month, $99.99 for the year. You get everybody's premium content. Make sure to subscribe on a desktop. Let's see what Bushnell wraps it up with.
Okay. We need a much better way to do interstellar. Much better. Something that's fuelless. Okay. There's a whole book written on different ways to do this, and it's all wrapped up with what I castigated, which is physics at cosmological scales, and what's really going on, which we don't know.
And that he's talking about quantum computing there. He's talking about quantum entanglements, right? And he's saying that we don't know. I'm not sure that's the truth. But again, remember, you're talking about somebody who's in the warfare business, in the national security game for decade upon decade upon decade upon decade, involved in all sorts of black projects, involved with the Jason scientists. Goes back before the Apollo program to Gemini.
Okay, last question.
Oh,
Yes,
tough. Dennis, thank you so much for sharing the wisdom. And I want to change gears a little bit. Let's talk about nanotechnology. You briefly discussed in your talk. What are your thoughts about the toxicological effects of these new materials that we're building, not only to us, but to the environment as well?
Talking about nanotech, great question. And he smiled about it.
The Prince in England had it about right, Prince Charles, years ago. Okay. We don't know. We do not, and it's not just nanoparticles, which, by the way, 98% of all of the studies I've seen say that the nanoparticles are bad for human physiology. Okay? Very few, they're good for some medical processes, but overall, in terms of the overall physiology, no. But it's not just that, okay? The chemicals that we've been putting into and end up in the fish halfway across the bloody Atlantic, okay, is taking down the capability of males to incite children, okay?
Wow. Wait a minute. Are you telling? Wow. Bushnell's admitting that the pollutants and chemicals out there, and we've talked about this, okay? We've talked about not only sterilization, but the demasculization of men and how men are half of men. He's actually telling you. He's telling you, I mean, he might as well be telling you, folks, that they're frickin' turning the frogs gay. Wow. Pretty stark.
It's altering all kinds of stuff. We have not done good service to ourselves because we are terminally tactical. The Chinese have a 1,000-year planning cycle, the Japanese 140 years. The U.S. planning cycle is 3 months on Wall Street to the 4-year presidential cycle, period. I do these kind of briefs on advanced techs and where's it all going and so forth, and I publish. I actually run with the dogs that do futurism seriously internationally. And the bad things are never studied and need to be, okay? We need far more foresight And we need to study hindsight to inform the foresight. But you're dead on.
And there it is. There it is right there, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. I think the two videos, the watch along, really important. I do want to tell everybody, hey, we're still on YouTube. We're bringing people in from the Cats videos. If you're not subscribed and you're new to the Bermas Break, come on in, thumbs it up, subscribe and share. Again, Rockfin, Rockfin, Rockfin. And if you haven't seen the Transhumanism and Reality in 2018, I would encourage you to go check it out over at Podbean. You can follow me there. I'm on Spotify, but they don't carry the MP4s in case you actually want to watch the stuff and see the documents. But vidcast, the machines are waking up. Let's watch. We definitely improved the audio, so hopefully it was as good or better than even today. So Odyssey, Getter, all the docs are free. It's not about left or right. It's all about right and wrong. I hope this was insightful. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip side. By the way, Rockfinners, I want to thank David Westfall, Shane Cole, and Tea Leaves for the tipskis, and Hutch. Couldn't do it without you.